Hello, I'm going to walk through the example from chapter 3 because I think it can be a little bit tricky when you go to do your scatter plots. A lot of students make a simple mistake and they don't get the right scatter plot. And we're also using some date calculations, so I want to make sure that you guys understand the logic here. So if we know, for example, that let's take an easy end of the year movie. This movie was released on December 16th, so it was only out for 15 days before 2012. A movie like Rango here that was released in March would be out for many more days during the year. So we're basically trying to establish whether or not the increased amount of time for the year of 2011 where a movie was out would that be correlated to a higher gross pay? It seems like maybe it would, because the longer the movie was out, the more people would have time to go see it, and so the more profit they would be able to collect. But we want to actually measure whether or not that's true. So to do that, we need to subtract the date of excuse me, the first of the year of 2012 from, and then subtract from that the release date. So we'll use an example where where it's easy for us to check our formula. And year, month. Oh, I have an error in comma there. And so we get 16 days. And this is the answer that we want because we need to also include the day that it was released. So that would be the 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th, 29th, 30th, 31st. That is indeed 16 days. So we know that we've used the correct starting date. A lot of people use the last day of the year to do this calculation, and if you do that, you'll cut yourself one day short. So be sure that you think through the logic and then double check it when you're doing formulas like this, especially when working with date functions, because Excel can be a little bit finicky. So one way to copy and paste a formula is to hover over the cell until you get this little black plus sign, and then you can click and drag. So in this case, I'm going to drag up to the beginning. Normally, I would do my calculation in this first cell, but I wanted to, like I said, choose an easy one to make sure that I had the right formula. And then I'm going to drag down all the way to my last row. And now I've created a new variable, and I can finish the rest of the questions. To do that, I'm going to create a new tab just to keep things clean, since this tab is pretty full, and I like to keep data on its own tab. I don't like to add plots and stuff into the data tab for a number of reasons, which we don't need to get into right now. The first thing we needed to check was correlations. So to do this, we use the correl function, or correlation function, and we choose our two rows. So we want to first look at gross pay and days out. So gross profit, and then comma, and then I'm going to select the entire column of days out and finish that and hit enter. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing to check my correlations, if I could type, for days out. Oh, no, sorry. What were we looking for? Tickets sold, comma, and days out. All right. You can see they're very similar, and it appears that this is a very weak correlation. So that's not promising, but the last step will be to create some scatter plots so that we can visualize this data and see if there's a trend visually. There are some things that I've noticed about this data, though, that I want to point out. We're only looking at 2011, and we haven't checked our data to make sure that we are calculating only for 2011 films. So let's go over here and turn on filters and just make sure that we're only looking at 2011. And indeed, we are not. So I'm going to take out all of the 2011 films, and then you'll see that there's a bunch of films in here that are not supposed to be included. So if I filter on all of those films, I need to remove these items from our analysis before we do our scatter plot. And these will also affect that correlation as well. So we definitely want to get rid of this data. So we'll delete those. And then now I need to turn my filter off. And I'm now down to, let's see, 594 rows. Okay, so now I need to visualize my data. So I'm going to come over here to this tab and I'm going to insert a scatter plot. And then I'm going to right click and select my data for this scatter plot. So I'm going to add my X values. So we'll start with the days out along the X and the gross pay. And so I have this problem with Excel. That's not what this chart should look like. I'm actually going to switch these and switch the columns here. Okay. Wow. So there appears to be no trend here. Interestingly, this still doesn't seem right to me, and sometimes I have this problem with Excel, so I'm actually going to delete this scatter plot, and I'm going to try this problem from a different way. What's happening is that Excel can be a little bit finicky about the order in which you have your columns when you're creating charts. So it likes to have the X column first and then the Y column. So if my my x-axis is days out, I really want that information to be on the left. So I'm just copying this data over so that I can do this. Basically, I can highlight these two columns, go to insert, and insert a scatter plot, and then this is the graph I'm looking for. So it's not clear why it doesn't like the other method. It should work, but I'm going to actually Control X this plot and move it over where I want it. And then I'm going to select this column and this column by clicking this column, pushing down Control, and clicking this column. And then same thing, insert a scatter plot. This looks like it's supposed to, so I'm going to cut this and I'm going to paste. So you need to use some of your intuition when you're doing this homework. And when you're in Excel, if something doesn't seem right, reach out to me and we'll troubleshoot together. So if you're having problems getting Excel to generate plots, this is what they should look like. So if you need to use the little trick that I just showed you, where you move your Y value data over to be on the right side of days out, which is your X-axis data, then do that by all means. From here, you can answer the questions for interpreting this. So they're asking, based on this behavior that you see, do you think that you can use this information to predict how successful a movie will be?